How to Find Meaning in Suffering, The Lessons of Viktor Frankl. What is the one thing no one can ever take away from you?
It is not your possessions, your social status, your professional success, your bank account, or even your physical freedom. It is the last of the human freedoms, the ability to choose your own attitude in any given set of circumstances. Today, we are diving deep into one of the most profound books ever written, Man's Search for Meaning, by the Austrian psychiatrist Viktor Frankl. This is not just a book about the Holocaust. It is a timeless, essential manual on how to endure the darkest, most agonizing chapters of your life وتم الرهن الآخر مع شعور بالغاية يصمد أي عاصفة. Viktor Frankl was a prisoner in the Nazi concentration camps, including the death camp Auschwitz, for 3 years. During that time, he lost his parents, his brother, his pregnant wife, and his entire support system. He was subjected to unimaginable cruelty, constant hunger, backbreaking labor, with daily dehumanization of being reduced to a mere number. Yet, in the midst of this absolute nightmare, Frankl did something that changed the course of psychology and philosophy forever. He observed. He watched his fellow prisoners not just as a doctor, but as a student of the human spirit. Wanted to understand with scientific precision why some people gave up and withered away, while others maintained an inner spark of life even when everything external had been stripped away. Frankl's core argument is that the primary motivational force in a human being is not pleasure, as Sigmund Freud suggested, or the will to power, as Alfred Adler proposed. Instead, it is the will to meaning. We are fundamentally, biologically, and spiritually driven to find significance in our existence. When we find that meaning, we can endure almost anything: starvation, cold, loss, and betrayal. When we lose that meaning, we descend into what Frankl calls the existential vacuum, a state of profound apathy, boredom, and deep-seated despair that characterizes much of modern life, even in the comfort of our homes.
In the first half of the book, Frankl paints a harrowing, visceral picture of life in the camps. He describes the psychological phases of the prisoner. The first phase is shock, the absolute denial of one's circumstances. Then, the second phase involves a kind of relative apathy. Prisoners became so overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the horror, the constant presence of death, and the daily humiliation that they became emotionally blunted. هذا كان a necessary psychological defense mechanism. If you felt everything, you would break. You had to distance yourself from the trauma just to keep functioning. However, Frankl noticed that the prisoners who had the best chance of survival were not necessarily the strongest physically. They were the people who had a why. They had a purpose that existed outside the walls of the camp. They had someone waiting for them, a child that needed them, or a piece of work they had to finish. That specific, burning why kept them tethered to life when the how of their daily existence was pure, unadulterated torture. As Frankl famously noted, borrowing from Friedrich Nietzsche, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. But what happens when all hope of returning to a normal life is gone? Frankl explores this through the lens of what he calls logotherapy. This is the school of psychology he founded, which focuses on the future and the meaning of our existence. Frankl argues that we find meaning in 3 primary concrete ways. The first way is through work or creation. Be performing a task, contributing to the world, or creating something beautiful, a piece of art, a garden, a business, or even a well-raised child, we leave a mark. We find meaning in the value we add to the collective human experience. It is the act of contributing something that didn't exist before. Think of your own life. What is the work that feels like a contribution? It doesn't have to be grand, it just has to be meaningful to you. The second way is through love. To love another person is to see the true hidden potential in them. It is to recognize their unique humanity and to be changed by that connection. Even in the freezing, horrific conditions of the camps, Frankl observed that men who were able to vividly imagine their loved ones, talk to them in their minds, and hold on to the memory of their love were often able to survive significantly longer. A memory of love is not just a sentiment, it is a powerful, life-sustaining anchor. When we love, we act on behalf of another, and that shifts our focus from our own internal pain to an external connection.
A third way, and this is perhaps the most significant for us in the modern world, is through our attitude toward unavoidable suffering. There are moments in every single person's life where you simply cannot change the situation. You might be facing a terminal illness, the permanent loss of a beloved family member, or a financial or career failure that seems totally insurmountable. In those moments, you cannot change the facts.
But Frankl argues you can change your perspective. By choosing to face suffering with dignity, you transform that suffering into a meaningful achievement. You turn a tragedy into a victory of the human spirit.
You show that while your body or your bank account can be broken, your soul remains untouched. This is the ultimate triumph.
This brings us to the most challenging part of the book for many readers, the realization that we are fully responsible for our own lives. We often treat our lives as if they are things that happen to us, rather than things we are creating.
نسأل, why is life doing this to me? Or what do I want from life? Frankl argues that these are the wrong questions. A true transformative question is, what is life asking of me right now? Life is constantly posing questions to us. Every day, every encounter, every crisis is تحدي. When we stop looking for happiness as a direct goal, because happiness, like success, cannot be pursued, it must ensue, and start focusing on the task in front of us, we find that meaning appears on its own. Or stop being a center of the universe when start becoming a participant in it. This is a profound shift. It moves us from a state of passive reaction to a state of active engagement. In our modern world, we suffer from an existential vacuum. We have more comfort, more technology, and more freedom than any generation in human history. Yet we are plagued by a pervasive sense of emptiness. We fill this void with constant stimulation, consumerism, social media, or workaholism. But none of these provide lasting satisfaction. Frankl's warning is clear. An empty life is a dangerous thing. يليفنا susceptible للانيزم لو deep despair. To counter this, Frankl suggests we cultivate a sense of radical responsibility. You are not a victim of your circumstances. No matter how bad things get, you are the director of your own internal world. You are the architect of your own meaning. Even when everything else is stripped away, your consciousness remains. Your ability to decide how to process your reality is your greatest power. Think about the challenges you are facing right now. Perhaps you are unhappy in your job, struggling in a toxic relationship, or feeling overwhelmed by the news. It is easy to feel small in a world that feels increasingly chaotic and uncaring, but Frankl's life proves that the size of your world does not determine the size of your meaning. A person living in a crowded, hopeless, cold barrack can find more meaning than a person living in a palace who has no purpose. Meaning is not a destination. It is not something you find once and then keep in your pocket. It is a continuous dynamic process. It is something you create every single day through your actions, your choices, and your attitude. It is about choosing to be kind when it would be easier to be bitter. It is about choosing to persevere when it would be easier to quit. It is about finding the why in your daily how. It is about understanding that your life is a series of moments, and each moment is an opportunity to prove who you are. Consider the nature of change. We fear it because we see it as an ending. But Frankl invites us to see every transition as a new question being asked by life. If you have lost a job, the question is, how can I apply my skills in a new way? If you have lost a relationship, the question is, what have I learned about the nature of love and myself? If you are struggling with a health issue, the question is, how can I model resilience and grace for others?
The moment you reframe these as questions rather than punishments, the existential vacuum begins to fill. Furthermore, we must address the role of hope. Hope is often mistaken for optimism.
Optimism is the belief that things will work out in the way we want them to. That is not always true, and it can be fragile. Hope, in Frankl's view, is the belief that life has meaning regardless of the outcome. Even if you don't get the job, the promotion, or the healing you pray for, your life still has meaning. Your integrity, your choices, and your courage in the face of that outcome are where the meaning lies. This is a much stronger, more resilient foundation for the human spirit. As we reflect on Frankl's work, we realize that life is not just a matter of avoiding pain. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is a fundamental part of the human condition, but misery is optional. You do not have to be miserable just because you are suffering. You can carry your suffering as a burden that you have chosen to bear for a reason.
You can carry it with a sense of purpose. When you give your suffering a meaning, it ceases to be suffering in the traditional sense. It becomes an offering. It becomes the price of admission to a meaningful life.
So, what is the takeaway for you? If you are feeling lost, if you are feeling as though life has lost its color, its rhythm, or its point, do not wait for the circumstances to change. You are the one who needs to change. Start small. Take radical responsibility for one aspect of your day. Choose your attitude toward one specific problem you are facing. Ask yourself, كيف أكاز بهذا مع استقاد؟ وما هو المعنى النضالي بهذه اللحظة؟ Life is asking you a question. What your answer is your life itself. It is a massive, daunting responsibility, but it is also an incredible gift. You have the power to define your own purpose, regardless of the world around you. This is the ultimate empowerment. Many of us spend our lives waiting for someone else to validate us, to tell us we are on the right path. But Frankl teaches us that we are the sole arbiters of our own meaning. No one can give it to you, and no one can take it away. Viktor Frankl survived the absolute worst of humanity, and he left us with a message of hope. Proved that even in the most restricted, dehumanizing environment, the human spirit is essentially free. That freedom is yours too. It is the freedom to choose your own way. Use it to find your meaning. Use it to build your purpose.
ولذكر, no matter how dark the night may seem, you have the inner light to illuminate your own path forward. You possess a unique role in this world that no one else can fill. When you realize that, your whole perspective changes.
You stop asking, what do I get out of life? And start asking, what can I give to this moment? That shift is the bridge between a life of aimless wandering and a life of profound fulfillment.
إنه الديفرنس بين surviving و truly living. Your life is not a collection of accidents. It is a canvas, and you are the artist. Every choice is a brushstroke. Every hardship is a color you have to learn how to mix. The challenges you face are the raw materials for the meaning you will create. Do not waste them. Do not let them turn into resentment or bitterness. Instead, let them be the fire that forges your character. You are the author of your own story. You have the pen in your hand. And while you cannot control the plot twists that the world throws at you, you can absolutely control how your protagonist reacts. That is the essence of character development. That is the essence of growth. In every tragedy, there is a seed of potential. In every loss, there is a lesson. In every failure, there is a new direction. As you walk through your day, remember that you are capable of far more than you believe. You are not defined by what happens to you. You are defined by how you respond to what happens to you. This is the core message that has helped millions find their way out of darkness. It is a message that transcends time, culture, and circumstance.
Perhaps you are worried that you aren't enough, not talented enough, not rich enough, not wise enough. But meaning is not reserved for the elite or the exceptionally gifted.
It is available to anyone who is willing to look at their life with honesty and take responsibility for their path. It is available to the student, the parent, the retiree, the worker, and the dreamer. It is available to you right now, in this very moment. Think about the people who have influenced you the most. Were they the ones who had everything? Or were they the ones who faced adversity with a quiet, persistent strength? Most of us are moved by those who have found meaning in face of impossible odds. That is the legacy you can leave behind.
You don't have to be a famous psychiatrist to change the world. You just have to live a life that is intentional, purposeful, and compassionate.
So, what is one area of your life where you can shift your perspective today to find more meaning? How will you change your attitude to turn a struggle into a source of strength? Take a moment to think about this. Write it down. Make it concrete. A path to a meaningful life starts with a single conscious decision. Let that decision be yours today. Stop running from your pain and start looking for the meaning hidden within it.
You have within your core of resilience that you have likely never fully tapped into. When you decide that your life matters, that your choices matter, and that your response to the world matters, you tap into that power.
It will carry you through your darkest days, will sustain you in your brightest ones. It is the compass that will keep you on course when the sea is rough. Thanks for watching this deep dive into one of the most important books of the 20th century. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who might need to hear these words. Remember, you are the architect of your own purpose, and your story is still being written. Go out there and make it a meaningful one. The world is waiting for your unique contribution, for the specific way you choose to answer the question that life is posing to you right now. Stand tall, take the pen, and write a story that is worth telling.
Your search for meaning is not a chore, it is your greatest adventure.